Hopefully. Did we get it this time? I think so. Alright, I think we're cool. Welcome everybody to the stream. Hopefully you can hear me. Just a couple technical difficulties getting the stream to work, but I think we're all set up now, all good to go. Let me know if you can hear me, say something in chat, and we can go ahead and get started. Alright, cool. So, yeah, where did we leave off last week? We left off with a base mesh looking pretty similar to this. Probably not even quite this cleaned up, quite this far along. But I've done a lot more work on this since our last stream on last Tuesday. I stream every Tuesday. So since then, I've kind of taken this a few steps further. Just today I started adding poly paint to this, but we can just go ahead and look at this in black and white to get a feel for just sculpturally where it's at. So a lot of additional assets added in terms of our little sock warmers, you know, our leg warmers, whatever you call them. More stuff on the feet, some more stuff with the hands, belt, satchel, not scarf, but what are they called? Why can't I think of it? Handkerchief? No. my brain's blanking. Non-scarf. Bandana. Bandana. That's the word. Bandito boy. But yes, since then, you know, this morning I just added poly paint on this. I've been thinking about changing quite a few things in the face here, but we'll get to that as we continue on today. But yes, so the reason I started this, I kind of got tricked into taking this further by people on my stream, but a lot of what we were doing was focusing on creating some really simple, clean base meshes, mannequins that we could use to essentially block out characters, and this was the character that I was blocking out. It's a concept by GopGap. You can follow them either on ArtStation or Instagram. They're an amazing artist, tons of awesome concepts, really cool style, I love it. I'm just going to delete this guy. But that was the point of the exercise, and then from there it just kind of evolved more and more into me doing more on this character. You can see his hands aren't even really finished right now. I have only one finger over there. That's the one I'm working on for part of the pose. The other one over here has a couple more fingers, but let's continue on tonight. Feel free to just hang out, ask any questions as I'm going along about the process, or yeah, anything else. And I'll try to answer whatever I can. Oh, and I'm Follygon, by the way. Or you can call me Ben. Either one works. I don't really care. Alright, so I did some work on the face this morning. Mainly, I think it was around the eyes. A couple things that I just want to do here really, really fast. I was experimenting with adding a little bit of a physical pull out on the iris pupil combo here, just to give the lens some depth so that the highlight could hit that a little bit more accurately. I definitely just kind of super don't like the color here for the sclera, or this part of the eye. I'd prefer to lighten that a little bit. I sampled this directly from the image. Let me see if I have this guy pulled up here. This guy over here. So when sampling colors from something like this, I just kind of chose them from my spotlight tool. What's nice about ZBrush is, or one of the things that's nice about ZBrush, is that you can just sample colors from images that you import just by pressing the C key. As long as you have your spotlight wheel pulled up, then you can sample anything in your image here. I was sampling colors directly from the image. Sometimes that's fine. It just kind of depends on your material, lighting setup, how accurate it's going to look, and everything else. Sometimes you're going to have to do some corrective measures, which is what I'm going to do here with our eye for just a minute. One thing that I really enjoy doing is using the RGB intensity with fill object to insert a smaller value instead of just straight up 100% fill that in. Max slider. Max sliders only, monster factory, right? We can drop that down to 5 and think of that as like infilling about 5% of that color. So we can do that a couple times, lighten that outside color and get that away from how dark that was looking. And let's just move that reflection around. That feels a little bit better. Probably even a little bit lighter. One thing I sometimes like to do with my eyes is even hand paint in some shadows, just kind of as a quick little test. Run a quick little mask lasso from eye corner to eye corner. It doesn't have to be perfect, just to get an idea of what that looks like, just so we can see that. From there, if you want to actually apply that, you can kind of hand paint it. I think it's better if you hand paint it. You can also blur your mask and kind of fill in the object the same way we did with our RGB intensity, but this time with a darker color, like black or something else. Some off black or something. Yeah, I think we want to focus a little bit more on form instead of color here. So there are a few changes I want to make to my face and the hair in general. And I can talk a little bit about some of the decisions that I've made here, try to answer your questions along the way. Some of the stuff here in the hair just really isn't possible. I'm actually really quick. Let's grab, I have another zoomed version here. Well, I already had that imported and off screen, I guess. That's fine. All right, so just of the head, if we look at this from the 3/4 view, I've been focusing a lot on getting the silhouette of the face to feel a little bit better. Some of the things that just aren't possible though, or I wouldn't say aren't possible, but we have to make a couple sacrifices here. If we're looking at this silhouette on this side and just that hard transitional hit there, that pull out, I'm not really seeing that too much on this side of the face. So I've kind of made the decision to keep the face a little bit more rounded. And this is something that, you know, it's easy to do in 2D, right? You can just kind of, hey, this is what it looks on this side, and this is what it looks over here on this side. We got this nice sharp point, and it makes the silhouette look really nice, but it's not always possible to do that kind of thing in 3D. Another thing that's happening here is the way that the hair is kind of framing the face versus kind of some of the stuff that I'm seeing in the silhouette. This silhouette is indicating that they're trying to go for a little bit more of the classic Android 17 hair. If you look up the character, he's kind of got a little bit of this widow peaky shape that I've very quickly blocked in here with just some quick Dynamesh geometry, and then I remeshed it with ZRemesher really fast. So I think I'm gonna go more that route, just because there's some weird stuff going on up here, especially with this silhouette break line. And we can maybe try to figure that out a little bit more. I think I wanna make the face a little bit more thin, and I think that's gonna be one of the first things I do. Let's just get into a transpose here and start playing with our face a little bit. Start trying to get this a little bit closer to some of the stuff that I'm seeing in our concept. Grab just our sculpting material. And what's going on, Blind Fox? How you doing? And everybody else that's joining us. I see that there's a bunch more people in here now. How's everybody doing tonight? Anybody working on anything cool? Anybody working on some androids? That'd be cool. All right. So one of the things that's kind of really throwing me off on the face right now is how thick I have this blocked out hair. And it's really just kind of messing with how I'm seeing some of these proportions. So I'm thinking we will get rid of that. We will hide it for the time being. And let's just grab our face here. I want to try thinning out the sides of this character's head a little bit, just to see if this helps a little. Typically when I'm trying to do stuff like this too, I'll really overdo it at first, just so I can see how far I can push something until it breaks. Helps me figure out exactly where I'm kind of seeing some discrepancies. Something like this, it definitely, when I go back to that original, it definitely feels a little too wide. I think where we're going though is a little bit too far. Let's just kind of rein that back in a tad. Definitely some cleanup that we can do around here in the corner of the eye. I was doing a lot of stuff to kind of reshape some stuff up here in the corner earlier, and we'll probably go back and fix that a little bit later. Here, let's go back and work on our hair for a moment. Working on some monsters. That sounds like a lot of fun. Ooh, you know what? I should. That's fine. Never mind. We'll just keep an eye on the clock. I was gonna say set a timer, but who needs a timer? We'll keep track of time. We'll be fine. And doing some hard surface stuff. Very cool. I love playing with the Z modeler brush in ZBrush whenever I get a chance. I love me some Z modeler. I don't know, I just kind of like poly modeling a lot in general. Most of what I do is kind of organic sculpting. Just kind of get in here with Dynamesh, ZRemesher, grab some of my clay tubes and move brush and go ham. But I really enjoy like the puzzle solving aspect of poly modeling. Playing with smooth groups and everything else to just try to figure out what something should look like low poly. Here's a good example down here on these little leg warmers. The low poly version of those. These were all Z modeled here in ZBrush. Just some, you know, bevels, extrudes, and that's about it on a cylinder. Nothing too crazy. That's what it looks like smooth though. There's probably some more changes that we'll make to that over time, but it's always fun. I enjoy it. Let's get back up here. So I think I do want to break symmetry on this hair, but I feel like we could thin it out a little bit more maybe before we do that. This is all just, like I said, poly modeled, so this is a little bit, or I'm sorry, not poly modeled, this is all just kind of like quickly dynameshed and junky, so might be a good idea to maybe just delete the thickness here and start over a little bit. Not quite start over, but at least delete this inner geometry. I feel like it's a little bit more in the way than I would like. Let's push it around for a moment before we do that. Also, it's really hard to figure out what's going on when it's black like that. I can't really see too well. Just arrived. Think this is amazing. Well, thank you, Redane, Ali. How are you doing? He's nowhere near done, but he's definitely a lot closer than he was last week. If you guys saw the beginnings of this character, and if you want to see the entire process, I've been streaming the entire thing over on my Twitch channel, and everything that I stream on my Twitch channel. I think there's a link somewhere in this general area. All that gets uploaded on my YouTube channel. The stuff that I stream here gets uploaded on the Pixelogic channel. Over on their, and by Pixelogic channel I mean their YouTube channel, sorry. My YouTube channel and the Pixelogic channel are where I have the process for this guy. So if you want to see the whole thing from sphere to where we are now, you can check it out. Everything was done from scratch. Except for the hands. The hands I had a little bit of a base, but I had made those hands in a previous stream, so you know, it's technically still from scratch. I'm gonna need to pull this side back behind the ear, get an extra strand in there. That'll be fun. Finally got a chance to catch your stream, but I have to run, no problem. Hopefully I can catch you on the next one. Hairy Mandibles. Awesome username. No problem. Yeah, I also stream over on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Follygon with an underscore at the end of it. I stream on there every day at noon EST, Eastern US time. If you are around, stop on by and say hello. You don't have to wait till Tuesday. Bang! Link. Looking for some kind of link. Exclamation mark link, I should say. Does anybody else call exclamation marks bangs? question? Any programmers out there in the audience tonight? I call them bangs out of habit. Or old habit, I should say. Link to your Twitch channel. Yeah, no problem. I think it's here. It's right up here at the top of the screen. I will type it for you. Twitch. Follygon with an underscore. Well, bam. That should do it. Or if you literally just Google Follygon, I think you'll find all my junks. Shouldn't be too tough. But there's a link for you guys. And like I said, everything goes up on my YouTube channel afterwards, so no worries if you miss anything. Alright, so I've thinned out the hair quite a bit. Let's break symmetry. Let's do it. Let's just start pushing and pulling some junk around. So we're really trying to focus here on simplicity. So let's take some time to block this out really nicely. One of the things that's going on here that, here, let's do this. So this character's hair, like I said, they have this, a little bit of this kind of like widow peaky V shape. M, let's go with M. Out and flowing around. You can see a little bit of that here, a little bit better, just to get you, give you an idea of what we're looking at. Obviously, we have a completely different style on our hands here, but what's going on, so I'm seeing this hit in the silhouette, which indicates to me that we have more so this shape going on. But I'm also seeing the hair kind of flowing down and kind of coming a little bit more. This is too high poly. Just a little bit more in front of the face, lacking that sharp point here. So I'm trying to find that happy medium, trying to figure out what Gap was trying to do here with this illustration. So we'll figure it out. We just need to play around with it for a little bit in 3D. Try to get a little bit closer to what I'm seeing here in the concept. And I think breaking symmetry is probably just a good idea in general. Seems like these are pretty different on each side. So I'm fine with that. Oh, and sorry, Bill, I missed your message there. Bill's working on Benjamin Franklin. That's pretty cool. My dad says, I don't know how true this is, but my dad says that he named me after Benjamin Franklin. Apparently. I don't know if there's any truth to this story. Or why. Benjamin Franklin. That'd be a cool dude to sculpt, though. I feel like he has a very recognizable face. It's on the 100, right? Benjamins. Alright, so I'm just trying to frame the face a little bit better here. Some of what I've been using, just the move brush, move with AccuCurve turned on, just to like quickly pull out some points, figure out what we want to do here. If we go back to the image here, I could try, it's really tough to figure out this shape because this, here. just so we can illustrate this a little bit better. This is a quick little paint over that I just did. To figure out our banana face. We've got very much a banana face, but the or let's do a different color here. Let's do a green, sure. So, figuring out the banana face was one thing, and then figuring out this silhouette. Like I said, we got these like hard transitional places. But what's happening here in the hair is we're getting like this kind of pull out from the hair part here in the middle of the head. So we're kind of like sweeping up here into the middle of the head. Here's where the hair parts. And this should be doing something like this, right? And then over here, it should be doing something similar. Flowing down that way. It's a little cheated, maybe even more than a little cheated. Just kind of outlining some of this. All of this, all of these strands are very, very wrong. No offense to Gop, but I'm just not sure what they were exactly going for here. This should be, at least for what I've seen with the character's hair, this should be like a negative cavity. This should be like more of this inner part of the hair that they've colored purple for some reason. I guess because his hair is black and it would be impossible to see if there was a shadow in there. But just to kind of give us an idea of maybe what that shape should be a little bit better, this is the inner edge of his hair. This is the inside, and everything past this edge would be on the outside of the hair framing the face, coming up through there. So that's my interpretation of some of the stuff that's going on here. This line is very interesting because I'm not sure if that's supposed to be the silhouette of the head or if the hair is just framing the face in a way to make that happen. It's an appealing shape, it looks great, I love the concept, but sometimes there's just some stuff here that makes it a little tough to figure out, right? So sometimes doing a little draw over can be helpful, but I'm more so doing that just to kind of illustrate what's going on there for you guys, so you can kind of see where my head is at. But we'll continue playing with it here in 3D and try to get a little bit closer. So let's just do some more blocking out here, and we'll do some more stuff on the face. Mainly so far we've just kind of thinned it out a little bit. Let's go ahead and get a secondary strand in here. I like to use my cube tube brush for this kind of stuff. Just something really simple. Pull down and through. You can lower your Z intensity. Make that a little bit more thin. And you can also taper that. If you go into your stroke menu under, I believe it is curve modifier size, you can grab a few of these handles and start to tweak that, make it a little bit more tapered. Let's see. Let's try something like that. Just click on the mesh to accept it, / delete our curve, and then I'll delete the mesh that I inserted that on. And then from there, of course, you can, modify this however you need. Delete some edge loops if you want to make it more clean. Add some edge loops if you want to spice it up, get some more geo in there. I will probably just leave it how it is for now and just work on framing around the ear a little bit better. We'll figure that out as we come through there. That could probably be a little bit more thin. I just want the major shapes right now. In terms of stray strands of hair, we can get those in later. That would not be something that I would be worried about right now. Same kind of deal when we're focusing on the character block out. Whenever you're blocking out anything and really starting to refine a shape, you want to think about the big shapes first. That's why we went into Photoshop and did a quick little kind of paint over here really quick. I think that's the wrong color. Nah, it doesn't matter. Quick little paint over here, just trying to figure out some of these shapes. Now I could just flatten this and frame the face exactly how I'm seeing it, but that feels really awkward to me. Let's see. Let's do some mask extractions. Just so I can feel, well, maybe not. Let's just play around here. I'm just going to fill in that center line for now. I'm trying to figure out how I want this center portion to flow. If I want from the profile that to be shoving kind of forward so that we can see that inner gap, or if I would prefer to have that back a little bit further. Obviously that point is a lot further up on the forehead in the concept, so we can maybe try pushing that a little bit more in that direction and seeing just how that reads. My problem with that is that the rest of this starts to not really like fit into that shape very well. The farther up we push that on the forehead, the more so then these kind of need to push forward on the sides of the head. Start to flow around a little bit more. And we can make big changes symmetrically still with just a really big move brush. That's fine. Doesn't really break anything too much. Maybe we can play with that a little bit. So from the profile, what I'm seeing here, if we just want to line up the kind of flow forward to that first hit in the silhouette and then bring that down here, I think that would be a good idea, just so we can kind of get some of these major points hitting in the silhouette. And then from there, we can think a little bit more about how some of this is going to work. We might be able to just add some thickness to that and go. I have a feeling it won't be quite that easy. It rarely ever is. Alright, so I'm seeing a little bit more of an angle here. Maybe try a quick little rotate out. It's got this beautiful windswept hair. Just take a look here at the 3/4, maybe fill in some of this just a little bit. It's totally fine to keep it really messy at this stage as well. I actually prefer to keep it a little bit messy. Makes it easier to not get caught up in the details. Not even really caught up in the secondary forms. Let's cut this in half and work on this one side at a time. For something like this, there are a couple, depending on what type of shape you slice up and split. If I were to run a close holes operation on this, it would try to blend between that area very awkwardly. Dynamesh tends to do a little bit of a better job with these types of holes. As you can see, it didn't really blend in between that middle area. So I tend to use Dynamesh on those specific types of close holes operations. This geometry doesn't matter at all at this stage in terms of how clean or how dirty it is. I actually want this to be pretty low res, pretty messy, just something that I can kind of start shaping up. So that's kind of where I have it right now. If anything, I could, drop the resolution even a little bit lower. Let's continue on here. I think the good thing that we did do though, just to get out of symmetry, because there's obviously just different shapes at work here, and trying to get this to work with symmetry on really isn't doing us, or it wasn't doing us, any favors. So let's start breaking that up even more. No, I need that off. There we go. Tracy, what's going on? And Recyclum, thank you very much, and welcome. How you guys doing? we'll continue to shape this up. One move brush, move at a time. Let's lower that res. 200K. Oh no, I did it. I said 100. My Midwestern accent has come out. 200. My apologies. Alright, let's pull this down a little bit more. I'm just trying to figure out how I want this to frame the face. Let's see. This is going to be a little awkward at first, but that's okay. It's no fun unless it's a little awkward. Well, let's make sure that this isn't getting too thin as well. We'll end up getting holes in our mesh when we dynamesh. We don't want that. Going good. Follow you on ArtStation. You're amazing. That's very kind of you. I appreciate that. No need to suck up though. Come on. Come on. We're all friends here. Looking good so far? Yeah, he is. He is looking good in some areas, but he's definitely looking bad in some other areas, namely this monster of a mesh. But everything looks bad, right? Everything looks bad until it doesn't. We just gotta find that doesn't point. That's a hard point to find sometimes. This is way too high. Alright. Hergadurgadur. So grab, move back face, just a little bit of thickness. Pull this out from the face a little bit more. I just arrived, but I have to go to bed. Yes, please do not stay up to watch the stream. Get your sleep. I encourage the beauty sleep. Do you have any tutorial recommendations? I do have some tutorial recommendations. I actually have some tutorials. If you go to gumroad.com/Follygon, I don't even, where is it? There it is. Gumroad.com/Follygon. If you're brand new to ZBrush and digital sculpting, I encourage people to check out my Quickstart course, my how-to ZBrush course. It's essentially a little over 2 hours of footage. It includes my brushes that I use, my materials, some base meshes, some other project-based homework, and gets you up and running in ZBrush kind of as quick as possible. I have some more stuff for intermediate and advanced people as well. Keyshot render tutorial, base meshes, brushes, materials, curved brushes, all sorts of good stuff on here. I should mention this as well, because I know a few of you do own my brush set. If you own this, there is a free update or upgrade for this out, so it comes with 6 new brushes that you can grab in there that I have created over the last week or two, I think. But yeah, check them out. And I'll just drop a link here in chat so it's nice and easy to find. Hello from Spain? Well, hello, how you doing? Texemi, I think, maybe? I'm very bad at saying the names. I'll do my best though. Wise words. Everything looks bad until it doesn't. Yeah, I think the first. I don't know if this was the first person I heard this from, but I I believe I got that from Dylan Ekron. It's something that I've heard him say more than a few times. And it's true. I always say everything looks like an alien at first. When you start sculpting, everything starts looking like an alien. Especially if you're sculpting in like traditional clay or wax, everything looks like an alien for a lot longer. I have to go to the dentist in the morning. Well, I hope you don't have any cavities. Noted you down. Defo, check out the tutorials. Well, cool, man. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good luck at the dentist. Make sure you brush them teeths. I think the last time I went to the dentist, I ended up having no cavities. I haven't had a cavity in a while. But come to think of it, I haven't been to the dentist in a little while. I'm probably a little overdue for a dental visit. You know what? I'm kind of tired of trying to force this. I think I'm just gonna sculpt what I see and let's go from there. I'm trying to make something work that I just think isn't going to work, and I'm fine with this. So let me. This is the hard side over here because of the silhouette point here. That one point is gonna drive me crazy. We'll try to make it work though. We'll figure it out. Every character is a new puzzle to solve. Actually, every character I work on has like 100 new puzzles to solve. Really want the stream to have subtitles. If somebody could type and translate in real time, that would be awesome. You know what? Give it a few years and I'm sure the technology will just be there to do it automatically for you. Student-friendly prices too. Appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah, I try to, you know, not break the bank. Have a problem making bodies with a cartoon style or Disney Infinity style. But in the same way, it looks amazing and interesting what you do. Thanks. I would recommend for the, you know, stylized character style. Let's see here. I was showing these off last stream, here last Tuesday. There's a couple mannequin just blockouts. I would highly encourage you to try something like this. I think this will help you out a lot. Just something small, something simple. Find a character that you like, and then try to block it out, just focusing on the big shapes and making something nice and clean. I just have this kind of split up into a few, you know, like, what, 7 subtools on this one, 10 subtools on this one. You don't even need to split it up that much, but that's just kind of how I like to work. I think you can do something just like this. It's really not that hard. It just takes a little bit of time and an effort, and you too can make something clean and simple. But yeah, I would say, you know, this is kind of pushing towards that Disney Infinity style almost. But something like that would probably help you out. I was giving out homework with those mannequins before, and if you want the assignment, essentially it was try to make something like that and spend at least like 3 hours doing it. That was the basic homework assignment. I think you can do it. Your pearly whites are ready for war. Well, good luck. Good luck to you. Go get some rest. Catching the Z's. Or the Z's, as they say in Upside Down Land. Good morning, Ramesh. Well, it's pitch black out here. It's nighttime for me, but good morning. Your shapes are singing. Oh no. Is that a good thing? I hope so. See, now we start to lose that point. What do we do? Looking at the way his hair sticks out in the silhouette makes you think his skull is shaped similarly. I actually ended up changing the shape of his skull based on the hair a little bit, so I did make some changes based on that. You can see that he's got a very kind of shelf-like face here, very, very flat. But as we rotate around in 3/4, you know, it makes a little bit more sense. I might kind of pull that back a little bit, but at least for now I'm gonna keep it. It's not really bothering me too much yet, but we'll see. We shall see. Hair is always something that I try to spend a lot of time on to make sure that I'm giving it the attention that it deserves. Let's see here. So like from here out, right? What can we do in an attempt to meet that silhouette? What stupid thing can we do to start getting some of these shapes? Her. No problem, Redane. Have a good night. Go Brazil. Yes, Brazil. I don't know why we're cheering for Brazil, but I'm all for it. Good job, Brazil. Hey, everybody, round of applause for Brazil. Brazil's doing good things. Before I go, I use Marvelous Designer quite a bit, but I haven't tried it for stylized models yet due to MD's extreme detail level on folds and such. Have you tried giving it a go? I have played with Marvelous Designer very briefly. I don't think it's really the type of tool that I would use for stylized stuff, though. I'm sure there's not for super cartoony stuff. Definitely not for anything like this. I think it'd be a waste of time, and you could do it a lot faster in here. Like you said, I think the simulation stuff would be a little bit more than what you want. A little more than you bargained for. Man, what am I gonna do here with this shape? Maybe just not do this shape, yeah? Or maybe... how can we, like, cheat this? I'm trying to think of a way that we could cheat this a little bit. It's got like this. I don't know. I'm just gonna sculpt what I see here. I don't like to use references typically for if I'm sculpting something like a character like Android 17 and I'm sculpting it in a very particular style. I don't like using you know, references from the original artwork too much. It's because it's not technically the same character. I mean, the characters are actually completely different. I mean, whoops. Here. I don't know where my image went. Hold on. I mean, they're just completely different characters, right? It's just a completely different style. Obviously, it shares the same name. It shares a lot of the same color schemes, but shapes, everything about this is completely different. So I don't want to use that reference too much. But holy butt, what is going on with your face, dude? What is going on? It's this one point, right? It's like not even that much of a thing. But it completely changes the silhouette, right? Not to say that this looks bad. It's just not the same shape. I want that shape. I want that dang shape. I admire your work. Congrats. Well, thanks, Texami. Appreciate it. Tracy says, is it necessary to have good compression of the anatomy to be able to make a cartoony design, Disney-style bodies? What do you recommend? A good compression of the anatomy. I think, I'm guessing you mean comprehension, just like knowledge of anatomy. Let me know if I'm misinterpreting that. But no, anatomy is a tool. Anatomy is not necessary for a lot of things, and I think you could create a really cool character with very little knowledge of anatomy. That's not to say that anatomy is not going to help you. It's going to help you a ton as you start to figure out how to create certain shapes. And even for something like this, even for, you know, something hyper stylized, it'll really help you out in figuring out where certain things need to be, figuring out proportions. Even though this is like a super lanky dude, he's not extremely, you know, accurate to standard human proportions you might see. But with that said, you know, it will, I think there's no harm in learning as much as you can, right? The more you know, the better off you're gonna be. The more you know, rainbow over my head. Somebody Photoshop that. What I would suggest instead of, I see a lot of people that are kind of like new, somewhere between new, just starting off, and somewhere between that intermediate phase. A lot of people are like, anatomy, 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 anatomy. The truth is, you know, I would say only study what you need. I kind of try to tackle a lot of that stuff based on, you know, project-based. Do I need this thing right now? If I'm sculpting a character and I'm like, man, I just can't figure out these clavicles. Well, guess what? I turn around and I grab these. I grabbed this book, actually. Atlas for the Human, Atlas of Human Anatomy for the Artist. I think it's by Rogers Peck, right? Stephen Rogers Peck. Then I'll go in, look up some clavicles, blah, blah, blah. I have like every other page folded in this dang book. I'll probably look in the glossary, take a look at some skeletons, you know, go crazy. But like I said, I would try to keep it more so for you know, what you're trying to focus on. If you try to like blanket cover everything, I don't think that's a bad way to learn. I just think it's better if you're in a situation where you're like, I don't know how to make this shape or how this works. Let's study it and then actually do it, actually create it. I think that's a really good way to like practice and learn stuff. But yes, Jan, I agree. Anatomy is always very useful. It's not like it's gonna hurt you, right? Unless you learn from something that's incorrect. But like in this face, did I use anatomy knowledge? A little bit. there's like some specific things here in the face that, you know, help me out proportionally, even though there's a lot of stuff going on here that's really funky with proportions. But a lot of stuff in the eyes, stuff like eyelid order, figuring out stuff for like the plane of your eyelids or plane of the nose, or, you know, just transitions in general. A lot of that is kind of universal, no matter what you're working on. There will always be exceptions. Oh boy, let's see. Kind of nudging back and forth between these two a little bit, aren't I? Let's do this real quick. I just want to figure out what exactly I want to do here. What's more important to me? The silhouette or the framing of the face down here? Probably the silhouette. I would think so. Let's kind of go back a little bit to that style that we had before, where it was a little bit like kind of pushed in here. A little bit like that. And try to make sense of all this. Like I said, it's kind of just, we're looking at this crazy thing that's happening, and I can't make it work from every single angle, so a little bit of some experimentation. That's kind of what sculpting is, though, just problem solving. Every time I find something new that I've never done before. Just gotta be a little patient. Rude Boy says, hey, good to see you streaming. Well, welcome, Rude Boy. I think Rude Boy was on, were you here last Tuesday, or were you hanging out on my channel the other day? I do recognize your username, though, I think. Jan says, what was that author's name? The Atlas of Human Anatomy was Stephen Rogers Peck, with a P. Let's see. Doing a project for university, I felt bad because I couldn't do my own concept, but that's not really my job as a 3D artist. I'll be working off of people's concepts. Yeah, I mean, I do the same thing. I'm a terrible concept artist. I feel like I'm a creative person, but the role of concept artist exists separately from the role of production artist. I know plenty of people that are amazing illustrators, but they're not very good at coming up with their own concepts. But they can draw some really cool stuff, you know? Doesn't mean that they're not talented, doesn't mean that they're not good at drawing or painting or sculpting. Just that they don't do that one specific part of it. And that's why concept artists, concept artist, singular, exists as a job in and of itself, right? Because it somewhat exists outside of the art, or the realm of doing the art. Let's try pulling this back even more. A little bit blending into the face there, but that's okay. I just want to see this line up a little bit better. It's definitely getting a lot closer. The left side hair seems to be pushed back, pushed a bit far back compared to the reference. That might be why the triangle looks a bit pointy. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you're saying. The left side hair. Are you talking about in the concept or in the sculpt? Seems to be pushed back, pushed a bit far back compared to the reference. Okay, I see what you're saying. This seems to be pushed a bit far back. Yeah, that's because we're trying to make this section work here. Maybe I don't understand what you're saying. You were here last Tuesday, Rude Boy. That's right. That's right. I did recognize your name. I just couldn't remember where I saw yous. And obviously, you know, we have this huge point on one side and not on the other. So there's some kind of evening that we're gonna have to do here. Let's take a minute away from our hair and look at some of the other stuff we got going on here. As I nudge my hair just a little bit more. In the face, here's another perfect example of some of the stuff that's happening in the hair. I think I pointed this out earlier, but if we look at the transitional area here in the cheek, we get this really sharp point here, right? We get this nice 1, 2, 3 down, 1 line, 2 line, 3 line, this really sharp point. But we don't really see that too much on this side. Same with the hair. The decision that I made on the face was to just end up rounding that out, keeping it nice and clean. And I think that might be what we end up doing for the hair as well. I still wanted to try to push it. I did the same thing in the face. I tried to see how far I could push that to get it to a good place, to get it to make sense. But sometimes, you know, certain things aren't possible in 3D. Sometimes things are just, you know, cheated so far that they break. I've definitely worked on characters that have been cheated in such ways that, you know, arms and legs are just differently proportioned or even completely differently shaped on, you know, what should be the symmetrical side of the body, right? Arms and legs shouldn't typically be different, but I've worked on characters that are, you know, just illustrated that way, and just depending on the situation, I'll, you know, decide if I need to push it that far or not. In this case, I think it's going to be better off if we make this read a lot better from every angle instead of just that one heroic angle that we see in the reference there. Alright, let's take a look at some other stuff that I got going on here. Where did our image go here? Or you know what? I think I have... Here we go. Tile, please. Again, the reference that I'm using this image is by GopGap. You can check out their work on Instagram. I think they're on ArtStation 2. I think there's mainly just a few things around here that I want to do a once over on and clean up and get this guy. Oh, whoa. I think we almost just had a crash there. Maybe not. So just a few things that I've been noticing that I've been wanting to take care of and just kind of put on the back burner for a little bit. Typically things that are just really simple and quick to fix. here's another really good example of something that's cheated a little bit. In the scarf of this character, I keep saying scarf, bandana of this character, as this rolls back around his neck, if you look at how thick that gets, that's not actually how the bandana would work in real life or in, quote, 3D, right? As this goes back behind the neck, it needs to start tapering and get quite a bit more thin. If you see this is kind of indicating that it's tied back there, and if it's tied, it's definitely pulling that bandana pretty tight. And that's actually the case in the character as well. He's just got the bandana tied once around, right around his neck there. So we wanted to do the same thing, so I had to make this work in 3D. This is actually blending in back here, and we can fix that really easily, but let's do that really quick. If you guys are looking for an easy way to make something look like it's tied, this is a little trick that I use. I'll create 2 pieces of geometry. Let's do here. Just for a quick example. So I'll create 2 pieces of geometry that represent the pieces that are pulling out that are tied. I have them symmetrical right now, but we can break symmetry on those really easily. And then for the knot portion, I'll just take 2 pieces of geometry. You can even do this with 1 and just like sculpt a couple lines on top of it. But I'll make it look like it's something that's tied up and knotted. And then after you tuck those in there, you can make that look even more believable. But let's just move this up and get that in position a little bit better. I could also make this portion, let's see, a little bit tighter through here because it's pretty thick. So I think I'm going to thin that out a little. This is something I tried to do earlier and I just don't think I pushed it far enough. Let's hide everything except for our scarf and our shirt. This really doesn't matter all that much. It's kind of for my sanity. And so I can thin out that back edge just a wee bit. And maybe pull that up. Let's see. Try to make this interact a little bit more realistically so it's not just blending into it. Just move that up. I'm just using my transpose brush a little bit, or transpose tool, I guess. And we'll move that bottom edge. Oops. What's going on here? Make sure that that's flowing nicely through there. We're getting a nice kind of tapered shape. And this is all the stuff that I spend a long time, obsessing over a little bit. It's kind of necessary if you're trying to create some really clean, stylized looking characters. I like to focus on getting some really nice, clean shapes. And to do that, it just takes, a little bit of time. It's really not too hard, though. Look, if I can do this, so can you. Check that distance read. I think I'll probably increase the scale of these guys a little bit. But other than that, it's starting to interact a little bit better there. It's Marmot. What's going on? Welcome to the stream. What is your model of screen tablet? What is your model? Oh, what is the model of my tablet? It's a Cintiq. Wacom Cintiq. What is your hotkey to go to the lowest subdivision level? Just the default. Shift D to step down and D to step up. You can see it jumping down here. I just press it a few times. Nothing crazy. Alright, so a little bit more cleanup on that scarf. I was looking at this guy earlier, just kind of doing a proportion check with my eyes. I was thinking of maybe making the torso a little bit longer and a little bit wider in the shoulder region. I think I'll probably wait to do that until I get into posing. I kind of want to make this guy's head a little bit bigger too, right now. I feel like it's a little on the small side. So I actually had his head a lot bigger at one point, and I scaled it down. So it's a really common thing. I don't know why this is. Maybe somebody here knows. It's really common for 3D artists to make characters' heads and hands a lot smaller than they should be. So I typically try to make my heads a little bit larger than I think they should be. And then they end up being about the size that they actually are. They end up being a little bit more accurate. In this case, I think the head is a little bit too tiny though. So I'm in Transpose Master. I'm just gonna adjust all this at once. Make sure I get all of that. And we will just scale this all up. I'm gonna pick this pivot point manually, or the scale point / pivot point, kind of. I don't want this to freak out too much. And of course, we could just line this up, right? But who wants to do that? Why would we do that? We want to work on our eye, our ability to see. Once we go into expression, we'll change a few things here in the face. I don't know if that's a big enough change to really do too much there. And it might be my hair. It's kind of messing with me a little bit. I'm gonna have to give him this super smug sideways smile as well. The expression on this guy will be a lot of fun. It's really not that complex either, so I don't think it'll be too hard. I might just end up re-sculpting the mouth though, because shifting a lot of stuff here is gonna be a little awkward. And I don't want to mess up the shape of my head too much. But let's see. So, Kali's got a question. Go ahead, shoot away with your question. I'm thinking we keep going on this line of thought here a little bit with the hair. And if we really want this to feel the same across to the other side, I think we either need to pull this out a little bit more or do the opposite on the other side. I think I'm gonna have to play with this for a while to figure out exactly what I want to do. I don't really like the super sharp pull out just to get that break in the silhouette. I feel like that's a little overkill, just to, you know, match the silhouette for the 2D concept. I've done stuff like that before, but I feel like that it just doesn't really work here. So I'm kind of fine with taking this a step back, rounding it out a little bit. I think doing that a little bit more to this side, though, would be a decent idea. Keeping stuff low poly though does help, so you don't get too caught up in stuff. I just add in some subdivisions on occasion so that I can like really plane stuff out with a pinch brush or whatever I'm using at the time. I'll also mention, if you guys do have a question about something that I'm not working on at this time, don't feel like you have to wait to until I get to a specific area. Like if I'm working on the hair and you have a question about how I did something in the face, you can jump over there really quick, especially since it's not too far. What do we think, guys? What do we think about this hair? I think this hair is crazy. And I think it's going to take a lot of time to figure out. So we don't have to spend all of our time tonight working on that. We've already spent quite a lot of time just kind of jumping around here. I am starting to like the idea of just kind of pulling this front corner forward and then maybe rounding that out a little bit. Getting this break in the middle a little bit more. Further back. And just kind of playing with that. Obviously pretty rough, but possibly headed in a better direction. It's also pretty laggy. I like to use the pinch brush a lot to figure out plane breaks. Knock it back a little bit with some other brushes like the trim. I'll have to figure out a little bit of a different angle here to make this feel a little bit more natural from the other side. So right now it feels very strong. Maybe we can just soften this a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that starts to lose some of that a little bit too much on the other side. We'll play with it. We'll play with it. Let's take a look down here for a little bit. Are you doing the entire portrait or just the chap, the guy? Android 17. I do plan on doing Android 18 at some point, but it will be for something else. I've talked a little bit with GopGap about something, but I'll have more information about that later. A little hush hush, top secret. Alright, so for our pants, I've been thinking about doing the seam here along the crotchal region. I was showing off a lot of different techniques for creating seams in pants. Probably before doing something like that, I would at least maybe try to get some of the folds that we're seeing right here in this area. For most of this kind of stuff, you know, something like this in the jeans, I like my sharp soft edge brush a lot. You can use a really large brush very gently and start the beginnings of this form. It doesn't have to be perfect right away. Just get it headed in the right direction. A few strokes here. Maybe get a little bit more of that, you know, pull out that we'd see here. Focusing on those V shapes, right, that we see so often in folds. And just start kind of blocking those out. Typically when I do this kind of stuff is why I like to work in my Follygon clay material. And just kind of block that out a little bit. And we could start to do the same thing for the edges. And I can see that we're getting a little bit of break up there. I think I would prefer to just kind of keep this more here in the front. And break up the silhouette ever so slightly on the sides. I really like the clean lines that we're getting, but I don't mind breaking that up a little bit. I'll just do a few kind of zigzaggies, right? Everybody loves them zigzaggers. Zigzags for days. I could have probably just mirrored that as well, but, you know, we'll just get a few more in here. Also, for this kind of stuff, I try to, you know, change my brush size as often as I can, so we're not getting too repetitive. I'm just trying to keep these pretty simple. And we'll start getting some cleanup in here. I just like to block this kind of stuff out with my soft, sharp edge brush. And then typically hit it with like a pinch or my MAH cut. A couple of these other brushes that have that pinching effect. Just the chap. Is chap a, is that more of an Easterly thing? European, maybe. Most At least here in the US, I don't really hear people say chap very often. Let's see. I don't want to go really overboard with this stuff either, which is very easy to do, especially on something like this. Like down the length of the pant leg, probably once we get into posing, I'll do a little bit more asymmetry, of course, but I'm not seeing a ton of folds going on in the pants. We can maybe hit a few different areas where maybe we could indicate some of that. For the most part, though, I think we're fine. Let's see. Oh, maybe just like a little bit back here. Grab a really big brush, if I can. Can't even increase the size. Alright. So then I like to take a pinch brush or something similar. Try to tighten up some of these areas, work on the transitions. I'll typically smooth out and fade these pretty well. Take the time to do that kind of edge control, or commonly called like edge quality when you're talking about 2D lines. Same thing in 3D though. So I use my subdivision levels to kind of step up and down and go through there and fade some of that stuff out. I think that's way too strong, so I'll probably soften that quite a bit. But just to at least start getting that headed in the right direction. Just so you guys get a little feel for the process here. So more so like that. You can also come through with something like a clay tubes, clay buildup, whatever you want to start adding any kind of additional folds on top of that. If you're seeing some of these areas where you'd like to get a little bit more volume, tend to just build that up a little bit. Just a couple brushes, nothing too crazy. So start to get a little bit more of a feel for that. And maybe still even a little bit too strong, just kind of looking at the distance read. Maybe not. We'll come back to it though. Let's go through some of these other lines that we've spent some time building up. Start cleaning this. What I really like being able to do with the pinch brush is holding the Alt key while using it and pull in on specific areas to like tighten up a negative point like that. Obviously very sharp, but you get the idea. I'll probably use that more so than just like the positive curve or positive pinch stroke. On a lot of these, I'm using the alternative smooth function as well. With if you're not familiar with, you just start using the smooth brush and then let go of the shift key while you're smoothing. And it'll start to soften that stroke. It will not soften it, but it's just a different smoothing algorithm. It's kind of like a more of an averaging of your vertices is how what I would compare it to. If I have something low poly here. So if you just use the smooth function, normally hold shift, right, and smooth out, it typically thins stuff out really quick, really strong, shrinks in the geometry, right? If you use that alternative smooth though, it will typically retain the volume fairly well. Obviously you can see here it's starting to pull in quite a bit, but it helps. I don't really have a great example here. If I had something with a really bad star here. Like around stars, it's typically really difficult to sculpt. You'll get really sharp pulled out points. It's hard to get a decent resolution out of that area, but using that smoothing algorithm tends to help a little bit more. Using that alternative smooth, as it is, I believe that's what it's called. There's actually a few things that also work the same in ZBrush. Like a Z remesher, if you hold the Alt key when you click Z remesh, it will run a slightly different algorithm for it. What else does that? I think there's a few other things, but off the top of my head, I don't think that works with Dynamesh. I might be wrong. Somebody in chat might know though. All these ZBrush secrets. That's right. I'll share them all with you guys. It's all in the documentation. Time to grab some literature. Well, maybe not literature, but some documentation. And I think some of these lines are just, you know, a little bit too strong for these volumes that we've built up here. So I think just kind of hitting them a little bit with some trim, knocking some of that back. A little bit here in the crotch. I kind of want to pull that edge down just a tad. I'm just starting to get into some secondary forms here. For the actual seams, I'll probably do the front seam before I break symmetry, but for the sides of the legs, I'm thinking that I'll probably wait. This pose isn't very extreme, so I could probably get away with it very easily. If I'm just sculpting a character though, like this, you know, a lot of the time I like to wait to do some of those fine details like seams or some of those things that might shift and break after I pose. It's just a little bit easier for me. Yes, the secret easy button. Documentation. I don't look up too much stuff in the documentation, or at least I don't anymore. Just ever so rarely if there's like a new thing that I'm like, you know, I need to read up on this and figure out exactly how this works. Benja, what's going on? Nice name. Says retopo demonstration, please. Probably not tonight. And that's typically not something I would like to do, at least in terms of manual retopo in ZBrush. This is all done with Z remesher with polygroups. You can get a similar effect using the Z remesher guides brush in ZBrush. I really enjoy using polygroups though, because it not only gives you a little bit more control over your edge flow, but it also gives you some polygroup selections that you can make later on for either masking or just quick selections for working on specific areas. I'll typically use them for like masking off certain areas, something like that. But they are very helpful. I highly encourage you guys to check out remeshing with polygroups. It's really not that hard. And I've shown it off more than a few times here on stream, and if we have a chance to do it again, I will show it off the next instant I get. We can also think a little bit about how the belt is interacting with the pants and try to create some more folds around some of that area. So if we want to form fit that a little better, add some subdivs in here. I really don't need them right now, but just to kind of get us in the right headspace, grabbing some our sharp soft edge brush, and anywhere where this is touching, try to get a little bit of that depression and push out there. So we could try to focus on that a little bit too. Maybe some through here. Some of that extra little pull out. Just some quick few extra lines here. Probably the same back here, right? Oops. It's a little bit looser or more loose over here. It's kind of just hanging off based on the angle. I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of this belt is, especially when it looks like he's got another one actually around his pants. I guess this is just his utility belt for his satchel that's like barely hanging on. I don't understand the physics of this belt is what I'm trying to say. Now it's very easy to overdo a lot of this stuff, and that's kind of the territory that we're getting into. So I just want to take some time to knock a lot of this back down. Make sure that we're getting some nice clean shapes. Don't want to get too into that super like sharp form transitioning area. A few here and there aren't bad though. Let's continue to blend the rest of these and just knock back a lot of this. Getting a little heavy-handed. It's okay to be like a little messy during this stage because it's really not too hard to clean up afterwards. Taking some time to make sure some of these lines are flowing properly. And you know, this is, the material here I don't think would have quite as much buildup of form as we're getting in some of these areas, so it's kind of knocking back this a little bit more too. Just kind of looking at the silhouette break up there. I think it might be a little too much right now, but let's just kind of leave it and keep going with some of the rest of this. Do you have any good books or references for form and curves, basic theory of shapes, etc.? I skipped most of the fundamentals, unfortunately. I don't. I do not have any recommendations for that specifically right now, but I am working on a new course, more of a class, and I've wanted to do this for a long time. But an actual class with some live elements where I'll be able to interact with you guys and have some opportunities for some project-based homework, some critiques, kind of go through the whole character creation process, and also talk a lot about those fundamentals, which are pretty much everything when you're talking about sculpting characters in more of a stylized appeal, right? At least to me, that they mean everything. So I've been wanting to do that for a while, and that's something I was actually working on a little bit this afternoon. And I'll have more information on that soon. But as of right now, no, not any specific references for books. But hopefully here soon, I'll be able to point you in the right direction. Some more video-based stuff. The basic idea is to have, you know, pre-recorded stuff for lecture, some live sessions for critique, for feedback, and any questions about like homework assignments or anything like that, and just general kind of Q&A about process or some of the stuff that you just mentioned, kind of like the fundamentals. I definitely don't have enough time, I don't think, tonight to go over too much of that stuff, but I would be happy to, and I have done this many times on my stream, kind of talking about a lot of these fundamentals, and I would be happy to do it again. I don't mind, you know, talking about the same stuff over and over, as long as there's somebody asking. So maybe next time here we can do a little bit of some fundamentals. Some of the things that I try to keep in mind while sculpting. Let's just take a step back for a minute, zoom out. I think there's definitely some areas where a lot of this is still a little heavy-handed, but I think I like the location and just kind of placement of a lot of these. It's just a matter of knocking it back a little bit, I think. That would be awesome. Fundamentals for life. Perfect. I'll keep an eye out. Yeah. I think a lot about fundamentals while I'm sculpting, and I say fundamentals, and that's like a really vague thing, right? Unless you're... I think everybody maybe has different language for some of these things. Like some of the things that I look for when I'm sculpting my characters, and I talk about this on my stream all the time. Some things like tapered shapes, making sure that there's no parallels that are in the character design or character that I'm sculpting, unless there's something or a situation where it adds to the design at all. So if we look at, I'll just pull up the image so I can move it around a little bit, or even, yeah, this is fine. So like if we just look at something like this dude's arm, right? This is just one part of the character. But there's nothing in this arm, or even the rest of the character, that has parallel lines. There's even nothing that's parallel with the, why can't I zoom out? There's nothing that's parallel with the ground plane in this entire design, in this entire illustration. Looking at this, you know, there's definitely a lot of tapered shape. Holy butt. A lot of tapered shapes, a lot of cool stuff going on here, some straights versus curves, which is another one of those fundamentals that I try to look out for. But yeah, you know, that's literally just like one thing that I try to look out for when sculpting. And we can talk more about that kind of stuff maybe when we have a bit more time, or maybe we'll do it tomorrow on stream, on my stream. By the way, my link is, let me see if I got it. Here, wait, I can do this. Oh no, I butchered it. Oh, I did it right, okay. Here we go, I made an arrow. Twitch.tv/Follygon with an underscore at the end of it. It's at the top of the screen there. I stream every day except for Sunday. I stream at noon Eastern US time as well. And I will be on there tomorrow. Maybe talking about some fundamentals. And showing off some of those. If you guys are interested in that kind of discussion though, over on my YouTube channel, when I was sculpting those blocked out mannequin characters that I was showing you guys at the beginning of the stream today, that's pretty much all I talked about the entire time I was sculpting these guys. So if that's something that interests you, where is it? If you go over to my YouTube channel, just probably go to the most recent videos, is probably the easiest way to find it. I think it's this one. Here. Mute me. Yes, it is this one. I will just go ahead and copy and paste the link in chat since we're talking about it. I think that worked. That was weird. The link like freaked out. But yes, if that's something that you're interested in, like I said, fundamentals and that kind of thing, that's probably a good first step to get you headed in the right direction, in the right mindset. I never thought, you know, years ago that I'd spend so long zoomed in on somebody's crotch. I said the same thing when we were sculpting the Great Prince of the Forest. When we were sculpting, where is he? This deer dude from Bambi, Great Prince of the Forest. I never thought I'd sculpt a deer butt in my entire life until this day, until 20 days ago when I sculpted him. He was a lot of fun to work on though. I liked that character a lot. Some deer booty. Words I never thought I'd say. Deer booty. Some of these lines don't make too much sense. The more I use my pinch brush too on this stuff, the more out of whack some of this geometry gets. So if it gets to a point where it's really hard to manipulate some of this stuff, I'll just remesh it. Especially for something like this, it's really easy to just remesh and get it back to a workable place. This is a very simple shape. Just pretty much two or three cylinders stacked on top of each other. Would not be hard to clean up. But I love me that pinch brush. I'm not gonna stop. I'm not gonna stop using it. You like the deer, Sapphire? Well, thank you. Thank Walt. Good old Walt Disney. I don't know who the original illustrator or creator of the character was. I'm pretty sure, what was it? I think 1942? It was 1940 something when that film first came out, which kind of blows my mind. Bambi came out, what would that be? Almost 80 years ago? That's insane to think about. Blows my gourd. So that kind of, I think, gives you an idea of my process, at least, for starting to sculpt folds and then getting into a stage of refinement. I think these could use still some more refinement here. But we got a good kind of base going on. And with a little bit more TLC, we could get these up to a really nice level, I think. So let's take a step away from our pantaloons for a moment and take a look around. If you're just joining us a little bit late here in the stream and you feel like you missed something, no worries. All the stuff on the Pixelogic channel on Twitch here gets uploaded to their YouTube channel afterwards. So if you're new here, definitely click that follow button. And also check out their YouTube channel. It's just YouTube/Pixelogic, Pixologic. Pixelogic. Let's see. And then mine is just Follygon, spelling somewhere up here. Should actually give this some depth. I'll probably do this the same way that I did the sleeve up here. So I just kind of create the illusion that this has some thickness to it. If the way I think for sculpting in general, if we look at the inner edge of this, get rid of that. I tend to think about stuff for physical production a lot, just because that's what my background is in. So for something like this shirt, if I were to 3D print this, we are looking at the inside of this geometry, by the way. We're looking at a little cross section of the sleeve, and that's kind of pushed up in there. So I'll typically kind of taper some of these internal edges, because if we're looking at something that's going to be RP'd later or molded, we don't want a lot of these really thin cavities, or we wouldn't want an actual thin shirt. That just wouldn't really be possible for something that we wanted to create physically. Unless, of course, you're going to use a different material. Maybe you're going to have an actual cloth shirt. You know, Barbie, Mattel, Fisher-Price, they do a lot of that kind of stuff. But in this case, you know, I tend to think about the inside of my geometry as well. So I pushed that in, and then I tapered that shape, and for the infill, because this gets a little thin down here, instead of it staying really thin for, whoops, wrong brush, thin for a long time, like that, having that little, just a little thin shirt, instead we get this nice kind of tapered infill there. Saves us so we don't get a super thin area, and it still has the illusion of looking like the arm is going up in the sleeve, and there's not really a situation, at least right now, where you know, it would be like, oh, this shirt isn't actually thin. This is an actual shirt. Like, it doesn't matter. It looks fine. And I'll do the same thing down here on the sleeve. I do this kind of stuff a lot for clothes, for like pants or anything like that, while I'm sculpting, just because I like to have it set up for later. So a lot less work if I'm gonna, you know, print something like this or do anything else with it. Saves a lot of time to think about that stuff while you're sculpting, though. And I kind of just keep that stuff in the back of my head while I'm going, because that's just kind of my background. But let's just mask that off, push that in a little bit, and then do a little bit of scaling, maybe, or freezing. Oh no. There we go. So same basic shape. Wrist goes up in that sleeve. And obviously we got some secondary forms going on here with the folds and everything else. Probably wait to do that until... we could maybe do a little bit of that now, but I think once we get into posing it'll be a little bit, you know, just different based on what I'm seeing there for some of that stuff. Well, let's at least clean this up, right? Let's do some pinching. Alright, that feels a lot better to me. Probably just do some stuff to harden up that outer edge, work on thickness a little bit. It's kind of hard to tell. It looks like maybe there's like a little bit of a... I can't tell if this is a fold or an actual cuff, or if the sleeve is like rolled back a little bit there. I swear, the default photo viewer in Windows. What do we think? I think maybe he's got more of like a cuff situation going on. Let's see. The reason I'm dynameshing this is because of how stretched and dirty that geometry was getting down here. And that's not really nice. I don't like when that happens. Just to make this a little bit easier on myself, let me grab one arm. So one of the ways I like to do any kind of seaming or maybe like a separation for a cuff, I'll typically make that, of course, you know, geometrically. You could do that with a texture pretty easily. But one of the ways that I like to do seams and kind of what I just described there with the cuff, maybe like a little bit of a separation, for some kind of a seam line, your curved tube snap brush is really, really cool. Has a lot of different uses. And you can maybe use a different curved brush. I'm just going to illustrate this with the curved tube snap brush really quick. Try to make this a little bit more thin. Sure, something like that. That's fine. And then what you can do with that inserted geometry is actually set that to negative and turn on live boolean. And eventually down the road you can subtract something like this. But what this will allow you to do is start working on creating a seam line for something. Or in the case of what I was thinking about using it for, was wrapping it around the geometry, which you can You can wrap around a cylinder or any piece of geometry by pulling out the curve to the outer edge and then holding the shift key, it will then snap and connect back on itself. So again, you just pull out, hold the shift key, and it will create a ring for you, and you can mess with how you want that aligned and everything else. It's really great. It works with a ton of brushes. It does not, unfortunately, work with a tri-parts welded brush, which is what my cube tube brush here is. So I can't make this snap back in on itself. It won't weld the geometry. It will get pretty close though. I think instead of doing it this way though, for creating that area, I think the better way to do this would be to just cut off a piece and then have that be the actual cuff area. In terms of scale, it's really not that thick. Let's do a split. So somebody was asking about remeshing earlier, or retopology. A little trick that I like to use very often in my meshes, especially for something like this. I'll turn off the lines so that we can see the polygroups going on. So we have a few different polygroups, and what these polygroups help out in doing is they allow you to select different stuff really quick. Here, let me switch my brush. They allow you to do some quick masking, but they also have another really cool functionality. Whoops, that's the wrong piece. Let me just separate. That's terrible. Let me try that again. Let me make a new polygroup there. That'll work just fine. So we have 1, 2, 3 polygroups here. And if we go down into ZRemesher and turn on the keep groups function, and we'll set our poly count to like 1 for this. That's probably plenty. And then remesh that. I'll turn line back on just so you can see what happens here. Let that do its thing. The keep groups function is going to essentially look at these polygroup separations and say, hey, you are trying to put an edge loop there. Let me try to give you a nice clean separation between this area and try to retain this form a little bit better. So hopefully that'll work out. It looks like it's done a fairly good job. It's probably a little bit too high resolution for what we need. So we could play around with the res, you know, maybe cut that in half or drop that down really low, and then play around with that. Typically what I like to do for something like this, if I'm trying to get something out of Dynamesh to be a little bit more workable, I'll remesh it incredibly low. Whoops, I think the default is 1 or 2, I don't remember, doesn't matter. Do a quick remesh on this. I have that on 0.1. I think that's about like 1/10 of what I had before. Let that do its thing, and then we can project that information back up for that shape. And this is a pretty simple shape, right? Or a relatively simple shape. But as we get back up, and that did an awesome job down there. Holy crap. Maybe it's because my smooth group got messed up. But when I start subdividing this, it's going to start losing some of the original volume. If we look between these two, if I turn on transparency, you can see that this one's quite a bit thinner, quite a bit more thin, right? So to get that back, I will subdivide this once, go into project, we're under subtool here by the way, click on project, see that inflate back out. I'll just sit here and do this a couple times. That's probably enough at this point, but we can do this as many times as we want. Subdivide up and project, and that'll help get that shape back to what we had with the Dynamesh geometry, but now on something nice and clean with some subdivs. And that was just to, you know, clean up our sleeve, get that in a more workable place. Now I'm working on creating what will be essentially that little cuffed area at the end of the shirt. And for something like this, I don't really know. Maybe we can just make this completely hollow. I don't know, it doesn't really matter, I don't think. Or it shouldn't matter too much. Let's just do a couple slices through some of this. Try to get something clean. And let's see how we did. Not too terrible. Let's grab our Z modeler brush. Honestly, that probably could be quite a bit lower. Man, that last Z remesh though was just super nice. I'm going to use the Z modeler brush to go through and delete some extra edge loops. Just stuff that's kind of unnecessary, kind of in the way more than anything else. Get rid of that stuff. Maybe do some edge beveling. Some really tight edge beveling. And start creating a nice little cuff here for our shirt. And we could even connect this back up, could weld some points, bridge some edges. It's really up to you. I mean, in all honesty, we could go back to the low poly version of this, and instead of doing what we just did with all that separation of form, instead what you could do is something like this with like a bevel around here. Then you could, you know, pull in an extrude poly loop around this area. Start to get your cuff in your shirt that way. There's always a billion different ways to do everything in ZBrush, right? Or in modeling and creating in general. You know what? I actually kind of like that. I'm thinking, maybe I can get this to still fill in that form. Let's see, can I project up just here with the dynamic? I didn't think so. It's got to be actual physical geometry. So, within ZBrush, you know, if you've ever played with the dynamic subdivision stuff in here, it's essentially like a smooth modifier in Maya. All these little orange pins are showing where my actual polygons are compared to where it would, this is what it would look like if I applied 2 subdivision levels. So I can't really modify this shape because it's not what the actual polygons are doing. It's just kind of a little previs of what that looks like. So I probably couldn't do that unless I just inflated all of this, which is probably fine. I don't think that would hurt anything. We can do a quick deformation inflate just to get that volume back up. And some of that. And maybe like do a pinch or bevel in here for the elbow. I don't know. So many ways to do everything, right? Just a few different examples there. Let me resample that color though. That little off-white. So we've looked at a lot of different things tonight, just kind of going over kind of a lot of cleanup. There's not a lot of big changes that I'm going to make on this guy, and unless it's kind of like the secondary getting into folds and stuff here in the pants. I also need to do that really in the shirt quite a bit. Also need to fix this hair. This hair is all over the place. But once I get into posing, that's when things will really start to get fun. And really require quite a bit of cleanup. I always say that when you add poly paint, so when you start adding color and then when you start getting into posing, that's when a character starts to feel like it's really coming alive. So we're definitely getting there. He's still got quite a while to go. but I've made some good progress in a lot of, you know, different areas. Up in the hair, it doesn't seem like we really did that much if you just kind of flip back and forth, I think, between the two. I don't know, let's see. How far back can I go here on this hair? Oh, this was way back. Okay. Let me see. Alright. So, before, obviously our head's kinda in the way. Oh, I think I went a little bit too far. So, a lot of reshaping going on for sure in the hair. More of just kind of just problem solving, figuring out how we're gonna fit this silhouette with also the kind of lining of the face that we got going on there. It's a little bit of a tough problem to figure out. But I'll be doing that probably over on my stream tomorrow. And let's see. Let me just mirror this arm across here really quick, and that'll probably be one of the last cleaning up things I do real quick. Missing an arm. If you have subdivision levels up in your Z plugin menu, you can instead use the Subtool Master to mirror stuff. You can just click on Subtool Master, or you can click on Mirror here. It's exactly the same. And mirror that across the x-axis and combine those objects. But what's great about the Subtool Master mirror function is that it will work with subdivision levels. So I use that pretty frequently. It used to create an extra mesh in older versions of ZBrush. I guess it doesn't do that anymore. So that's actually kind of nice. I'll do the same thing down here, but I'll just use the mirror and weld function instead. And I'll work on cleaning up that cuff a little bit later. But we're a little bit over time here, so I think that's going to be it unless I see any last minute questions, which I'm not seeing pour in right at this moment. So I think that's going to be it for tonight, guys. I don't think there's anything else that's really sticking out to me other than what we've kind of touched already and need to need to hit quite a bit more. But I want to thank you guys for coming and hanging out. I hope you have a great rest of your night. Make sure if you haven't already, follow or subscribe or whatever it's called wherever you're watching. If you're watching on Twitch, click that follow button. Or if you're on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And I will hopefully see you guys next Tuesday. I'll be streaming same place, same time. And then I also stream on my channel every day at noon EST. Other than that, go ahead and check out the official ZBrush Discord channel. There should be a link on the Pixelogic website. I don't have the link offhand. Unless somebody here has it, I would really appreciate it if you could share that for me. Other than that, you know, there's some links. If you just Google Follygon, you'll find all my stuff for my Gumroad, tutorials, courses, blah, blah, blah. You guys know the drill. And then you'll find my YouTube channel where all my streams get uploaded and all that stuff. But that'll be it. Let's see. Do you do critiques? I do critiques. Real quick. Man, my mouth is giving up. But every Saturday over on my Twitch channel, I do a live critique session. I already have a few different projects that we're going to be looking at that people have emailed me. But if you want to get your sculpt or character or whatever you're working on critiqued live on my stream, grab your tool, save that tool out, send me it to follygon@gmail.com. I'll type it in chat here for you real quick. Shoot me an email. Just include your Z tool. Include your username so I know who you are, or your real name, it doesn't matter, and then include some information about the character or whatever you're making, whatever you want, so that I can get an idea of what you want me to look at, and just try to be as specific as you can. Again, that's Saturdays at noon Eastern US time over on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Follygon with an underscore. My chat is kind of frozen here. Yes, doobie-doo. Thank you. Rooba-dooba-doo. All right. I think that's going to be it for tonight. We're going a little crazy over here. So I hope to see you guys next week and maybe over on my channel. I'll catch you guys next time.